Hey, it's Ashley from Smart Edition Academy. In today's video, we're going to work through a free PSAT 10 math practice test for the no calculator section. So if you brought a calculator to this video, go ahead and put it to the side. We will not be using it today. You can follow along with me and access this practice test as well as free PSAT 10 practice test for the calculator section of the math exam, reading and writing language sections. The link to that practice test will be below. If you're preparing for the PSAT 10 and want more support, check out the self-guided PSAT 10 study course linked below with videos, practice tests, interactive lessons, and more. Okay, so we're going to go through this test together today. But before we get started, I just wanted to give you a little idea of what kind of questions you can expect on the PSAT 10 exam when you cannot use a calculator. So a lot of what I notice coming up is algebraic equations, having to solve for a variable, taking an algebraic equation. Sometimes you're given those formula type questions with a lot of variables and having to get one variable by itself. Also translating from a word problem to algebra, being able to figure out how to write a word problem and turn it into math. Okay, so that's really important. Also function notation, being able to plug into a function like the f of x type of notation, being able to plug into that. And then simplifying polynomials, knowing when and how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide polynomials, combining like terms, and then also factoring will be a big one, okay? So you will have some multiple choice, some free response types of questions. And today we just have a little sample, 17 questions that you may see on your no calculator section of the PSATs. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump in and get started. If you have a scrap piece of paper and a pencil, that would be great. So you can follow along, or again, click the link for this practice test. So first question says, solve the equation by any method. 2x squared minus 70 equals 2. So in order to solve this equation, we have a quadratic here. We're going to need to try to get rid of that exponent. I'm going to just try to get this term by itself and then work my way from there. So I'm going to add 70 to both sides first. So we'll have 2x squared equals 72. Then I can divide by 2. And from here, I get x squared equals 36. Now, the opposite operation of squaring something is to take the square root. So we need to take the square root. So again, we can't use a calculator. So this is something that we either need to know or we need to know how to figure out. So if I know the square root of 36, I'm good. But if I'm not sure what the square root of 36 is, then I just have to kind of go through and evaluate what does that mean. Well, the square root of 36 is just some number that when multiplied by itself gives you 36. So for example, 1 squared would be 1. 2 squared, 2 times 2 would be 4. 3 squared would be 9. So I could keep going through here until I get to 1, that gives me 36. So once I get to 6 squared, then that would be 36. So when we're taking the square root of something, we also just need to account for the positive and negative of the number. So plus or minus 6 would be my solution. A regular hexagonal pyramid has a base side length of 6 inches, an apothem of 3 square roots of 3 inches, and a height of 15 inches. Find the volume in cubic inches. So on some of these volume questions with no calculator, you will be given a formula sheet and have a formula that you can use. So for this one, I'm going to give you a formula that if it's not on your formula sheet, they will give it to you. So I'm just going to give you a few options. The first thing here is when we have a pyramid, the general form of our volume is 1/3 times the area of the base times the height. So the area of this base, a hexagonal pyramid, so this is a hexagon at the bottom, we can actually rewrite the area of the base as 1/2 times the apothem times the perimeter, and then times the height. So if this is what you needed to solve this question, they would give it to you or it would be on the formula sheet. So what we're going to do here is now just plug in what we know. So 1/3 times 1/2 times the apothem, 3 square roots of 3. The perimeter, well, the perimeter of our hexagonal pyramid base, if each is 6, a hexagon has 6 sides, so 6 times 6 would be 36. And then I'm going to multiply that by the height of 15. Height of 15. Good. All right, so let's just go through and do some simplification here. So 1/2 times 1/3 would be 1/6 times 3 square roots of 3 times 36 times 15. 1/6, I think I can multiply this by 36 and just cancel that out. So 3 square roots of 3, this would become 6 times 15. So now I have to do 3 times 6 times 15. And in order to do that, 3 times 6 would be 18. And I'm just going to do this off to the side here because, again, we can't use a calculator. So we have to use an algorithm. 18 times 15. 8 times 5 is 40. 1 times 5 is 5 plus 4 is 9. And now when I go through, I have to add my placeholder and can do 1 times 8 and 1 times 1. And when I add this together, I'm going to get 270. So this is going to be 270 square roots of 3. Cool. 270 square roots of 3. An outdoor game board is 20 feet by 30 feet. One corner of the game board on the coordinate plane is -10, -20. What could be the second coordinate of the game board? So we need to look at this coordinate here, and the one that is correct of all of our options will either be 20 or 30 units away from that. So -10, -20. If I go to -20, -10, I'd have to graph this and then find the distance. So I'm going to leave a question mark here because I think there might be a quicker way to look at some of these other ones. So next one's -10, 10. Notice how the x value stayed the same. Well, the y value, -20 to 10, that went up by 30 units. So that one checks out. Okay, that one checks out. If I'm going to look at the other two, again, these I'd have to go find the distance formula for, which I would do if I had to. But because B, this or the second option, works out, then I don't really have to go check the rest of them. All right, let's try this next one. 2xy minus 1 times 3xy minus 2. Okay, so when I have to simplify this polynomial, I'm doing binomial multiplication. I'm going to use the acronym FOIL. So first, outer, inner, last. So what that looks like is first term in each set of parentheses. 2 times 3 is 6, x squared, y squared. Now outer, the outside term times the outside term. 2 times -2 is -4, and then xy. Inner, so I'm going to do the inner terms here. -3xy, and then last, -1 times -2 will give me a +2. So from here, I'm just going to combine like terms, 6x squared, y squared. -4 minus 3 would be -7, xy plus 2. So find the one that matches that, and it looks like that is our solution. All right, for this next one, let's convert 48 inches to yards. So if I'm going from inches to yards, I might want to take an extra step in there and go from inches to feet first. I know that conversion pretty well. So there are 12 inches in a foot, so I'm just going to divide by 12. So when I divide by 12, I get 4 feet. So now if I'm going from feet to yards, there are 3 feet in a yard, right? So what I have to do here is I just have to divide by 3. So 4 divided by 3 would just be 4/3, or it looks like my answer needs to be a mixed number because I don't see 4/3 as an option. So 4/3 would be 1 1/3. So 1 1/3 yard. All right, moving right along here. A county contains 25 villages, 12 towns, and 3 cities. There is an average of 6 stoplights in a village, 27 in a town, and 148 in a city. Estimate the total number of stoplights. So because this question is allowing us to estimate, we're going to try to choose easy numbers because we cannot use a calculator. So we have 25 villages, 12 towns, 3 cities. So there's 6 stoplights in a village. So 25 times 6 I can do pretty easily. I'm going to do that and not really worry about having to round too much or estimate. 12 times 27 is not so easy. So instead of 27, I'm going to say, let's call that 30, round to 30. And then 148, I'm going to round to 150 here. So 25 times 6 is 150. 12 times 30 would be 360. 3 times 15 would be 450. So now I'm going to add these together. 5 plus 6 is 11, plus 5 more is 16. 2 plus 3 is 5, plus 4 is 9. So 960 is what I get. And the closest option to that would be 900. So there's approximately 900 stoplights. A study separated two groups into people who drink coffee in the morning and people who drink tea in the morning. Researchers compared how people felt hours after waking. What type of study is this? So for this type of question, we need to know about statistics and probability. And in this case, when we have people who drink coffee versus people who drink tea, this is going to be an experimental study because each group or each person is put into a different group. And we're kind of doing an experiment. Okay, drink tea every day and let's see how you feel. Or drink coffee every day and let's see how you feel. Okay, so this would be an example of an experiment. For this question, we need to identify the variable from a census study that is categorical. So usually it's either quantitative or categorical. So categorical is something that isn't necessarily a numeric or quantitative piece of data, something that is a little more abstract. So age. Age is something you can count. It's on a spectrum. You can count age. Zip code. Although zip codes are written in numbers, that's a little bit tricky. They're actually just talking about like a zone, an area. So a zip code is not actually something like that you could count. So I'm going to come back to this. This is kind of an interesting one. Family size. That's pretty straightforward. That's quantitative. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however many people in your family, you can count that. And annual income, again, the amount of money that you make is on that scale or that spectrum that you can count. So zip code is the only one here that is not a quantitative piece of data. It is actually categorical. In a board game, a player can continue his turn if he rolls 5 or 6. Describe the complement of the event. So if we're rolling a die, you roll a 5 or 6, you complete your turn. The complement of the event would be the opposite of that. So if you don't roll a 5 or 6, you're rolling a 1, 2, 3, or 4. Okay, so that would be this option here. Okay, I hope you are finding this video helpful so far. I just wanted to remind you to make sure that you can check out the links below this video for this PSAT 10 practice test for free, as well as all of the other sections of the PSAT. And then you also can get more help with the PSAT 10 online course that is linked below as well. Okay, so let's keep it moving here. We got a few more questions. A local group wants to find out the opinions of the local job market. What group of people should be asked for the survey? So if we want to find out about the local job market, the best people to ask. Retired people. Well, do they have much information about the job market right now? Probably not. Unemployed people only. Well, that sounds like that could be kind of biased because you're only talking about people who are having trouble finding a job. Randomly selected people. Typically, randomly selected is the best option if you are trying to take a survey. Members of the local group. Feel like that could be a good option. I don't know how randomized that is or what that local group specifically is. Maybe it's a group of, people who are on the board of the town creating businesses. Like that might be a little biased too. So I think our best option here is option 3, randomly selected people. All right, I have another algebraic equation to try to solve. X squared equals 196. So in order to do this, we need to be able to take the square root of both sides. But if we don't have a calculator to do this, we can kind of work in the opposite direction like we talked about in the last question with the exponent. So let's just go through each option. Negative 10, 10. So if that's correct, then 10 squared would equal 196. But I know 10 times 10 is 100, so this can't be right. So let's check 12 squared. Well, 12 times 12 is 144. And if you don't know that, you might have to do the algorithm to check that. Let's try 14. I'll show you the algorithm here. So 14 times 14. 4 times 4 would be 16. 1 times 4 is 4 plus 1 is 5. Now let's move over with our placeholder. 1 times 4 and then 1 times 1. Now when I add these together, I actually do get 196. So this one checks out. And again, when we have a radical, we're taking the square root. It is the positive and the negative of the number. So negative 14 and positive 14. All right, let's write 29% as a decimal. So in order to write something as a decimal, okay, I'm going to take 29%. The decimal is hiding right here. We're going to swoop it to the left twice. So when I move that decimal over, I get 0.29 or 29 hundredths. Which ratio is equal to 31%? Well, 31% means 31 out of 100, right? Percent means out of 100. So the ratio that matches that would be 31 to 100. All right, let's try a few free response questions. So 8 divided by 2/9. Keep, change, flip is what we're going to want to use here in order to divide fractions. So whenever you're dividing fractions, think of fried chicken, KCF, KFC, So what we're going to do here is keep the 8, change division and multiplication, and flip 2 over 9 to 9 over 2. And then I like to use cross cancellation when I can. So 2 goes into each, so I'm just going to divide by 2. And now I can just do 4 times 9 to get 36. Okay, cross cancellation helps me simplify the question before I multiply, so the numbers are a little bit easier to work with. What is the order of rotational symmetry for an equilateral triangle? Well, an equilateral triangle just means that all the sides are the same. Okay, so triangle, we have 3 sides, 3 angles. Rotational symmetry is essentially asking if I am going to spin this triangle 360 degrees, how many times would it land on itself? So if we spin it once, a certain amount of degrees, this would end up over here. So that would happen once, that would happen twice, and then that would happen 3 times. And that's because this is an equilateral triangle, so all the sides are the same. If it was a different type of triangle, that wouldn't necessarily be true. So the rotational symmetry here would just be 3. Find the circumference in inches of a circle with a diameter of 6 inches. Use 3.14 for pi. So circumference equals pi times diameter. And when I plug in pi, I'm going to use 3.14, diameter of 6. I need to multiply these. And I'm just going to use my algorithm, 3.14 times 6. 4 times 6 is 24. 1 times 6, 6, 7, 8. 3 times 6 is 18. Now, where does my decimal go? So one trick is to just count the numbers to the right of the decimal. Okay, and that's how many times we move our decimal over here. Okay, or you can just kind of estimate and go, well, 3.14 is about 3. So 3 times 6 should be 18. So it should be close to 18. That's another way to just check your answer for if it's reasonable and making sure you put that decimal place in the correct spot. All right. The bar chart shows the number of boys and girls who participate in sports. What is the greatest difference between numbers of participants in any year? So we're going to look here, and we have a free response. We're going to enter our answer here. We're going to look for what seems like the largest gap. So this is pretty close here in 2012. 2013 has a pretty large gap. 2014, 2015 is the same. So it looks like 2013 and 2017 have the largest gap between participants. So this would be 80 minus this one would be in between 60 and 80, which would be 70. So the difference here would be 10. And then this would be 80 and 70. This would be the same. So it looks like 10 is the largest difference between participants. So we'll go ahead and enter that. And that's actually the last question of our exam for the day. So we made it through the end of this practice test. I hope you found it helpful. Please make sure to subscribe to our Smart Addition Academy YouTube so that you can get more videos like this and get lots of practice for your PSAT 10 exam. And let us know in the comments, when will you be taking your test? And if you need more help, let us know what we can make videos on and what kind of things we can do to support you. Be sure to watch and follow along to our other video on the PSAT 10 math practice test with the calculator that is linked below. I hope you found this helpful again, and I hope you have a great day.